Hello. This is my review on Lady in the Water, that M. Night Shyamalan flick, and made everyone convinced, that made convince the world, and made the world realize what I've been saying since The Sixth Sense came out. M. Night Shyamalan sucks balls hard. Wait, that's the other way around. Sucks balls hard. Sucks hard balls, meant to say. Well, this is to be fair, this is a lot worse than his past films. And then the ones he made later. Like he made The Happening first, or the... Nope, not gonna look. I'm too scared to look at the back, but you have the cover. But I think it was 2005, which I think came out first. So why is this so? Well, I think I know why this is the worst and Last Airbender the worst and like Shyamalan film he has ever made in his career. And it's because this is when when he had full on creative control over everything. How do I know this? Well, it might have to do with he wrote the script for Last Airbender and directed The Last Airbender and produced The Last Airbender. Same goes for Lady in the Water. He took on 3 of those privileges, plus acting, and he screwed all 4 of them up royally in a row. I was going to say, this was as bad as Spider-Man 2 Sam Maguire, directed by Sam Raimi. And at the time, I didn't know anything could be as bad as Spider-Man 2, but somehow he made it and managed to do this and made this. Somehow this is as bad as Spider-Man 2, but starring Tobey Maguire. It's directed by Sam Raimi, and I think written by Sam Raimi. So it opens up with these talking about every 100 years about ancient prophecy and female knife, and the female knife's duty and the guardian's duty to protect the knives, and the guardian's supposed to protect the female knife, and it happens every 100 years or every 1200 years. Well, that kind of. And anyway, it's up to the guardian to protect the female knives, even if he's putting on his life down the line by these scrunts. Yes, they're called scrunts. And so you're wondering, okay, prophecy. What does this have to do with Paul Giamatti? He's supposedly the guardian of the female knife that's been chosen by the gods, only to reveal in the 3rd act that the guy that we've been following, Paul Giamatti, for the 3-act structure, is not the guy. It's just some guy called Joe who made 2 cameos, and Paul Giamatti figured out that he is the guardian because of dumb luck. And he wasn't really doing anything. The scrunts were after him. But Paul Giamatti doesn't do anything. No one really does anything. It's let nature take its course because they're awful people. And I almost dropped the phone there. And so what's going to happen with the 3rd act structure until the alley action happens? Well, mostly if the talking throughout the 3 acts and Paul Giamatti drags his friends along with the mess that the female knife after the female knife abducted him by kidnapping him against his will. So he decides the Guardian, which is Paul Giamatti, who's later not revealed the Guardian, decides to help the female knife. And the third act. Yeah, you see what they're talking about, him and his friends are talking about, if they should help the female knight or just let her die and let nature take its course. And all of his friends die and he's the last man standing, so he decides to help the female knight. I think I'm remembering that part right. And only delay the female knife female knife guardian. And the female knife doesn't know that she's a female knife. Or, well, it's unclear if she knows she's a female knife or not. Because this Chinese girl discovered this ancient prophecy from her grandmother. And she says, once every 10,000 years, a female knife will come and be chased by scrunts, and a guardian will have to rise. And he actually asked the Chinese girl, who is the daughter of a Chinese old woman, asked if she's a female knife. I think this is after the Chinese old lady passes away in her sleep, and he gets a hold of, or she gets a hold of, the daughter gets a hold, granddaughter gets a hold of this book that explains all of their problems and what they need to do. So it gets better, but then it gets worse. Ancient prophecy, Shyamalan takes a key into solving this ancient prophecy. Because the book that explains everything, somehow M. Night Shyamalan blessed his creator, for some reason Shyamalan blessed his character with all this wisdom and knowledge about involving a female knife. And he decides to, and he plays a part in the ancient prophecies along with all of his other Paul Giamatti's friends that he drags along, including M. Night Shyamalan, takes part in the female prophecy, only to be revealed part of the sacrifices involves them being victims, except for Paul Giamatti. Oh, he's a victim to the movie, that's for sure. And all the characters they make cameos, which are side characters, they get sacrificed too. They get killed off too, and they play a role too. And for some reason, Chris was so insulted by, not because the story was batshit insane, but because of the critic supposed stereotype, and he's not really a stereotype when he gets reality mixed up with fantasy. Oh, I'm not kidding. When he is about to get killed off by a scrunt, from the scrunt's point of view, he starts narrating. So he starts narrating all of the movie cliches you could think of at this point. And he starts poking fun of the movie cliches, while instead of running, he just faces his fate while staring calmly and drinking and holding a cup of foam coffee, foam cup filled with coffee. It's really bizarre and confused. It's like, Okay, you're not trapped, so why don't you just run the other way? Or run back the way you came from, which is a room, and figure your way out from there. But no, it's why am I questioning this? It's like this when you're questioning the logic. I notice whenever I'm questioning the logic, or when you can question logic in any film, it usually means it's a bad sign of watching a bad film. When you're questioning the logic and the story and everything. And anyway, back to the story. So the critic gets killed off screen from the Skrunt's point of view, and the Skrunts are like these wolf made out of grass type creatures. With a bad CGI, it was a almost dated CGI effect for 2006. It's almost it's somewhere between being decent looking and too shitty looking. It's weird. It looks artificial, completely fake, but also looks real at the same time. It's just weird to describe. It's basically kind of like Appa from The Last Airbender was made by M. Night Shyamalan. That's kind of effect. The effect, the designs is something's like just horrifying about this stuff design. And wait, you're wondering if, but not nearly as horrifying as Appa's design from 2010's Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan. So yeah, we're in Stupidville because there are a lot of stupid things, and how the critic gets killed off and how the critic acts in the moment is actually the smartest writing in this film. And that's not a good thing. And after Paul Giamatti all the other characters, when he's last man standing, he decides to embrace his destiny as guy only later to reveal that the people that the Skrunts are going after is this kid called Joey, and that's when he decides to let Joey die, and because he's out no choice and has no choice because he has no choice. Really, not choice. He just coincidentally starts acting heroic, and the Skrunts go towards him, and this is before when Paul Giamatti decides to be a badass. He later to reveal the Skrunts and the Fiona prophecy. The guy in the prophecy's not Paul Giamatti, but Joey, who we barely saw in the film. I only got like one scene before this. And this is the second scene. He gets killed off and gets carried away by this eagle. And yeah, that doesn't really explain you're wondering what this can get. And this is after he sacrificed himself. Well, not really sacrificing this by dumb luck, sacrificing himself to the Skrunts to save the female Naph, and the female Naph turns into this, at least you're guessing that's the female Naph, but you're not really sure. It has something to do with like fulfilling this prophecy, and she transforms into Ego, which is a female Naph. And we're not really sure if the female Naph knows that she's a female Naph or not throughout the film. And no, I'm not mispronouncing anything. They literally call them Naphs and Skrunts. The bad guys are Skrunts. I don't know what that is. Um, so, and it gets better. This whole thing was originally, this movie, Lane in the Water, was originally a bedtime story made by M. Night Shyamalan that he told to his kids every night before they went to bed. I feel bad for his children. So he made this movie for his children. Just like he made The Last Airbender movie for his children in 2010. I feel remorse for the children. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the children hate him for making those two movies, this and Last Airbender. I wouldn't be surprised at all. So whenever so when you really think about when M. Night Shyamalan's at his worst is when he's doing something for his children. Well, let's hope he never does something for his children again. Hopefully he's learned his lesson from The Last Airbender, and hopefully he will never... Man, it looks like I seen Glass and I seen Split, and those movies were solid movies. So it looks like that he has a bright future. May not be a success. It's definitely not going to be a successful future after he shit on the franchise and shit the bed, also known as shit the bed, on The Last Airbender movie. It's not going to be a successful franchise like other people were hoping for him, or maybe even he was hoping for himself. Like, he's not going to be the next. He's not going to make Spielberg money or Tim Burton money. What be that supposed or be that successful as critics on audience, but I think if he can make at least films that are not the most successful financially by critics or audiences, but at least watchable and can get invested in them, and they're not bad stories, then I guess that's some bright future. However, is after this this movie and Last Airbender from 2010 by M. Night Shyamalan, and this movie by M. Night Shyamalan called Lane in the Water, is M. Night Shyamalan at his lowest point. M. Night Shyamalan is at his lowest, saying the worst things he's made. Like, ever. So, M. Night Shyamalan's character wrote the book to fulfill the prophecy. His character would have survived, but because he decides to do the bold thing, which is write the story about the female Knafs and Scrunts, he gets killed off fulfilling the prophecy for the greater good. This film gets a 0 out of 10. So yeah, this film is shit. The pacing is this is the slowest pacing I've ever seen in a Shyamalan film. The second slowest goes to Last Airbender. And the fact that I said commenting on The Last Airbender is not good thing. I'm not commenting on the show, I'm commenting on the movie by M. Night Shyamalan, by him. That movie. The slow between this and M. Night Shyamalan's Last Airbender is this the worst pacing I have seen for, well, anything. If they merge the pacing together, it would just be probably kill everyone. Even me. I bet. I hope I was wrong about that. Because if that prediction comes true, if he decides to get an idea from that, then I hope I at least survive physically. And everyone else. Oh, I can hear better now. So, yeah, don't watch this movie, and this movie can just bite me.